Hi, this is Doug Priestley with the Nortech Technical Service Department, and I'm pleased to announce the availability of Nortech Global HVAC Charge Calculator. After many years of development and testing, we have developed a tool to help in assisting in the charge of microchannel ACs, microchannel heat pumps, and then mixed technology coils like fin and tube indoor evaporator coil with a microchannel outdoor unit, or vice versa, microchannel indoor coil with a fin and tube outdoor unit. This is a web-based app, meaning that it's not an application where you go to one of the Google Play Store or Apple application store. This is a web-based app, meaning you can use it on a laptop computer or any mobile device. It is mobile friendly, meaning that when you're on your iPhone or your Android type device, that the screen is fairly easy to read and everything fits on the mobile phone screen. Some of the tools you're going to need: one is a set of gauges, two, a reliable thermometer to measure superheat, subcooling. You also may want a third item, which is a thermometer that will measure wet bulb temperature inside the home. While the application doesn't require you to know the wet bulb temperature, most manufacturers, including Nortech Global HVAC, do require wet bulb temperature to accurately charge any system. Before you get started with all that, you want to ensure that the airflow of your furnace or your air handler is set properly for the size of the air conditioner or heat pump system you've installed. And you want to also ensure, based on the QRD, that if it is a piston system, that you have the proper piston. Follow the QRD, and if a piston change needs to be made, you will see the pistons that are contained with the outdoor unit. Joining me is Greg Bruntz. Greg is going to give me some data as we go through showing you how to use the app. First thing we want to do is we want to log in to the website. So you want to go to chargecalculator, all one word, .com. First thing it's going to ask you for is your zip code and your email address. So I've preloaded the zip code and my email address here. And then I'm going to click sign in. First thing it's going to ask you is for your base charge. As always at Nortech Global HVAC, we're going to want you to refer to the QRD that came with the unit to ensure that you have the correct charge. If you're unsure of that charge, we can look at that a little bit later in the app. But if you're unsure if you have the correct factory charge, if you're coming up to troubleshoot or diagnose a system that may have a refrigerant problem, remove the refrigerant from the system, refer back to the QRD. Another great thing is EdgeTech HVAC is very mobile friendly, even though it's not an app. Get into the literature library off of Nortech Global HVAC website, and you can look up the QRD from your mobile device too. So it's very mobile friendly. You can get to that information fairly quickly if you don't have the information with the unit. A lot of guys will take the literature with them when they're done installing a system, but as long as you've got the model number, you can go back into the website, the literature website, you can get that information off of the QRD. So the first question it's going to ask me on the base charge on the charge calculator is what type of system I have. For our example here, we have a microchannel heat pump with a microchannel indoor air handler. We're going to select done. The control type is a fixed piston, fixed orifice. And we checked this before, so we know we have the proper piston in there and we know we have the airflow set properly. On this system, it is a 14 SEER heat pump. We're using a 3/4 inch diameter suction line. Total line set length, we've got a small line set, so we'll just leave it at the factory charge of 15 feet. And then the capacity of the unit, we want to look for that. You can look at the model number of the condensing unit to ensure that you have the proper capacity. And I believe this one, Greg?
2-ton with a 2-ton.
So we have a 2-ton microchannel 14 SEER heat pump. We'll click on that. The charge, there are two ways you can do it. You can do the actual charge that comes off of the QRD. I don't have a QRD handy with me, but we can do that later. Or you could do a calculated charge. Keep in mind that the calculated average QRD charge is what's going to be put in there. It may not necessarily reflect what the factory charge is. It is always best to get the factory QRD charge for that system if you know that that's in there. If you're just kind of guesstimating at what it is, we have averaged all 2-ton units across all model numbers and serial numbers, and then that's the average QRD charge. So we're just going to hit that. So on this example, we use the calculated charge, which was 95.6. I believe the QRD charge is right around 99 ounces. So we're fairly close. I'm comfortable with this number. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that total base charge of 96 ounces. The next thing the website is going to ask me for is calculated indoor wet bulb temperature or measured indoor wet bulb temperature. So if I go with the calculated, our outdoor temperature for this purpose is only 70 degrees. So I'm going to move the slider over to 70. Our humidity level in here, let's just guesstimate that it's 50%. Our indoor dry bulb temperature is 72 degrees. So it's calculating our indoor wet bulb at about 60 degrees in here. Now, if you want to, you can go with measured indoor wet bulb temperature. So we'll click on measured. We still have a 70 degree outdoor. Greg, what do you have for an indoor temperature?
72.
Okay. And what's your indoor wet bulb?
60.5.
So I've selected 60.5. So with this thermometer, it gives me the ability to measure wet bulb temperature inside the home so I can get an accurate reading. Keep in mind, I've spent a lot of time looking through other manufacturers' install instructions and charging procedures, and 99% of them ask for indoor wet bulb temperature when charging their systems. This runs roughly anywhere from $40 to $60 at your local distributor. It's a great tool. It gives you relative humidity. It gives you the humidity indoors, and it also gives you wet bulb temperature. So you can get a lot of good readings with this thermometer. And as I said, this is made by Fieldpiece. A lot of your meters will have accessory heads that will allow you to measure wet bulb temperature. It's fairly easy to get that information now. So keep that in mind when you're using this web-based application. So once I've entered in the temperatures, it now asks me to let the system run for 15 minutes before you take your first measurement. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be back shortly when we've allowed this timer to run. So now that we've started up the unit and allowed it to run for about 10-15 minutes, we're going to go ahead and start entering in some of the data that we've gathered off of our gauges and off of our thermometers. So Greg, can you give me the head pressure or liquid pressure?
Head pressure is 245.
And what is the liquid line temperature?
Liquid line temperature of 78 degrees.
What's your suction pressure?
116 pounds.
And what is your suction line temperature?
Suction line temperature 60 degrees.
So once I've entered in the pressure numbers and pressure temperatures, I'm going to click Calculate Charge. Okay, based on the charge results, the charge calculator is telling me I'm slightly undercharged. I've got about 90% of the system charge in there. It's asking me to add 9.1 ounces of charge in there. The charge results is really what I'm kind of interested in. I know I may be a little off on charge on this system, but charge count, it's asking me for liquid subcooling. My targeted subcooling is 5.3 ounces. My actual subcooling is 4.3, so that indicates to me that I am slightly undercharged there. My suction superheat is way out of whack, so I'm starving that evaporator with it being at 21 degrees of superheat. And then my targeted superheat, which is great about this charge app, it gives you a range of superheat that you want to be at. my targeted superheat should be within the minimum 10 to 14. So in this case, if I'm sure I have got the proper charge in here, based on weighing in the charge, I may add a couple of more ounces to the system to see if I can get within those ranges too. Now keep in mind, things that affect charge. Our factory charge is done in a lab. Your system may be, your ductwork might be slightly restrictive. You may not have the proper airflow across the coil. There are many other things that I'm going to take into account before I'm quick to condemn the charge. I want to make sure that I've checked my temperature drop across the coil. I want to make sure my ductwork, I'm going to check my static pressure. I'm going to look at my airflow, make sure my blower motor's set to the proper speed. All of those things. But I think in this case, I would go ahead and add a couple of ounces, let the system run, and see where we're at with it. So based on the numbers we had for this system, we went ahead and added added another 4 ounces of charge to the system. We determined that the system was low on charge, ductwork and everything was in pretty good shape. We determined that airflow was set correctly, our static pressure was okay, and we determined that we needed to add a little more refrigerant, so we went ahead and did that. But as you can see, you can use the charge calculator as an aid when you're starting up a system, brand new system. As long as you weigh in the charge properly, you can determine if you're charged accurately for your installation, but you can also use it as a troubleshooting tool. The application gives you targeted superheat and subcooling numbers that we've determined through extensive testing, really over 2 years of testing in the laboratory, giving you targeted superheat and subcooling numbers that you need to shoot for when troubleshooting a system. So if those numbers are out of whack based on what the charge is and what you're actually reading, you might look at ductwork. You may look for a dirty filter. You may look for a dirty coil. You may look for a dirty blower assembly. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it. If you're unsure of the charge in there, make sure you weigh in the charge. Again, almost all manufacturers these days are asking you to weigh in the proper amount of refrigerant. Again, remember, as we get into these more high efficiency systems, charge is becoming critical to get those efficiencies. So most manufacturers are wanting us now to weigh in refrigerant to it. Use this to help you diagnose and troubleshoot mixed technology systems. I know we did have some matches out there where we had microchannel outdoor units mixed with microchannel indoor and vice versa when we were making the changeover. You can use this tool as an aid to help you diagnose refrigerant system troubleshooting. Really great app. Kick the tires on it. If you have any problems with the app, give us a call in technical service or shoot me an email, doug.priestley@nortec.com. I thank you for your time. Please use this app. It's going to be, I think, a wonderful aid in helping you quickly charge a system and also quickly verify that you do have the proper charge in the system. I'd like to thank Greg for helping us out today on using this charge calculator. Thank you for your time.